So my heart's been stirred with some new wrestlings, you could say. And I feel somewhat compelled to share. It's hard, just like last video, I know it's hard. It's like I don't know what exactly my heart is saying right now, but as I start to talk and think through it, I'm hoping I can get to a place where I can reach down deep and make sense out of some of the stirrings. I just got back from a trip from Nashville. So that stirred a lot. And I can see in culture right now, I'm starting to get a better glimpse of what's taking place, in all of us. And there's always a lot taking place, of course, but coming to a greater awareness, it kind of allows you to process it, deal with it, and lay it bare before you in such a way, that allows you to not just to wrestle with it, but to claim it and to redeem it. So, I wonder if some of the spaces that we inhabit, if you think about your personal life, forgive me if I close my eyes, by the way, I'm just trying to focus and think, but one way to describe some of what's going on right now, I have a friend who we've talked about this in the past. As a culture at large, part of what we're going through collectively is it's not dissimilar to like when someone comes out of the military after years of service and they come back home and they have trouble reacclimating to, you could call it regular life. Of course, there's no such thing as regular life, right? Life happens wherever you are, whether it be the military or anywhere else, but that's one way to frame it, right? So it's difficult when you're used to a very ordered way of living, right? You have very particular, you could call them rules, a hierarchy, a structure. In the military, you get told what to do every day. It's like you answer to a particular person, you have your orders, you wake up, everything is meticulous, as it should be, right? If you're trying to accomplish large, incredible missionary tasks, there needs to be a lot of thought and structure, forethought, intention. And then you come home after years of that structure, and you come home to what? Freedom, in one sense, right? All those structures are gone. You can do whatever you want, just in some regard, depending on if you're coming home to a family, who you're coming home to, what you're coming home to, and maybe you don't know, right? Maybe you're coming home to a whole new way of living that you haven't even processed or sorted out yet. And maybe you have a lot of things from the past that need to be processed still. And in order to process things from our past, we need to feel safe. So last video I talked about mourning. if we're going to mourn, well, it needs to feel safe, right? If mourning sounds scary, I don't, it might not be so productive, right? But if mourning is something you feel safe to do, and if it's something that you need to do, which I don't assume it is, but it seems, we've been through a lot as a culture over the past 5 years. But personally, from individual to individual, I can't speak for another person's life, right? Like, I can't talk about, I'm not trying to reach into the private lives of someone that I don't know and say, this is what you're going through. But I can try to touch on collectively what we're going through together. Even when it feels like we're torn apart or we're separated or we're in discord, we're not unified. It's like, well, there's still something. We are still a community. Torn apart, ugly, in the trenches, maybe. Sure. That doesn't make us separated, not ultimately. I don't think that's what we want. I think we want to come together, but there's a lot to work through. And so if we're military soldiers that are coming home to a new way of living, well, there's trauma to deal with, right? There's things to process. One other thing I see, and this does tie together, I'm trying to stay focused with what I talk about, but one other thing that I see is how, because there is more self-preservation taking place in us today than, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, generally speaking. Self-preservation is an interesting thing because it's like, well, it's a important thing if you need to go through it. So like, you preserve yourself in order to feel safe and in order to guard yourself, to take care of your nervous system, to take care of your soul, your heart, your mind, your body. And so you preserve, right? So what does that do? It probably narrows in the focus a little bit. It's like, well, I can't handle all of this out here. So let me kind of narrow into like what I can handle, what I can focus on to preserve myself, to preserve my heart, my mind, my body. And there's something good about that, right? There's something needed about that. So we have a level of that. All of us go through that in some regard every day, right? So we tend to return to the spaces that have familiarity, comfort, that bring us a sense of peace and comfort. And I guess the first thing I want to make clear is that's okay. That's okay. And it sounds simple, but that's an affirmation we need right now. That's okay. It's okay to be self-preserved. It's okay to be mourning. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to stay in the lane in which you know, to allow yourself to heal, to process, to deal with what you need to deal with. So again, if we're military soldiers coming home to a new world, in order to process, in order to cope, in order to deal with what needs to be dealt with, we're gonna hone in, we're gonna focus on what we know. And if we can accept that, that's where growth takes place. It's in this place of like acceptance, like, okay, I'm gonna I'll make it personal for me. Gaming is a very important space for me. I've been through a lot. I have Crohn's disease. I've had Crohn's disease for 23 years, as far as I know. I was diagnosed when I was 11. We didn't understand Crohn's disease at that point in history, and we still don't. But we're starting to understand it along with other medical difficulties and diseases and disorders and all these different things. We're starting to understand those things better. We're starting to understand them more from a holistic perspective. We're starting to understand the mind, body, and soul, and how they intercorrelate, interconnect. And once you understand this, how do you understand this and how it moves forward and interacts with the world around it, right? So it might feel like a lot of fragmented pieces, but they're coming together. So, military soldier, you come home. That's kind of like the space we're in right now. It's like we're coming home from battle. In COVID, I was trying to dance around using the word COVID, to be honest. But, that's what we went through for the past 5 years. We went through COVID. It was medical. It was invisible. It was social. It was a lot of things. And its effects and its ripples throughout our culture and our people are still here. So there's a lot to talk about there. I think I was avoiding bringing it to the table because I don't know how to fully approach it yet. But if you think about it, it's like we all went to war. Was it against each other? Was it against unseen forces of evil? Was it against the invisible virus itself and bacteria? Was it against, many people have had deep and hurt hearts towards the political realm in America today. All of that, absolutely all of it, right? But at the end of the day, even though we're hurt, even though shots have been fired, people have been wounded, and I'm speaking spiritually, in our hearts, in our emotions. It's almost like the dust is starting to settle, and we're left kind of open-palmed, and it's like, well, what now? There's confusion, there's chaos, there's still tension, there's still disorder. But one beautiful thing about chaos, you think about order and chaos, like if you think about it, how maybe some of like the Eastern cultures think about it, you think about like yin and yang, the yin yang symbol. It's got the kind of black teardrop on one side, the white teardrop on the other, and then it's got a dot of the contrasting colors. Those represent order and chaos. And if you look at it, it's a melding between the two. So like order and chaos, and they kind of come together in what you could call the circle of life, if you want to bring Simba into it. But within the circle of life is order and chaos, and there's a balance of it. Order represents, I think order is easier to understand for our culture in this point in history. Order is pretty obvious to understand, the clarity, structure, things that we know, being able to plan, having rhythms in our life, understanding where we stand with the people and relationships around us, having a compass of orientation for what we're going through in our lives. That's order. That's beautiful, right? Wonderful, needed, precious. And then you have chaos. Chaos is what I think isn't understood so greatly in our society, because I think chaos is too quickly associated with evil. But there's something beautiful about chaos too. You know, chaos is, out of chaos spurs adventure, mystery, wonder. You know, like, it's hard to appreciate when you've been through so much of it. And it's very important to note that too much chaos will burn you. I can speak from experience. I've been through years of chaos with my Crohn's, with isolation, with addiction, with not being able to relate and connect to the people around me. I had an ostomy for 5 years. My colon was disconnected. I had to wear a bag on my stomach. I had part of my intestines amputated. I'm technically an amputee with my internal organ. And then in the middle of the peak of COVID, and I say the peak, to me, the peak was like 2022 in terms of the peak of chaos, discord, disorder, difficulty, suffering, intensity, that sense of fight or flight, disunity. Yet, on a side note, in all of that, we somehow made it through. We didn't cut each other's heads off. There's some deep testimony in that we're still standing, breathing, trying to work things out together at the end of what was probably one of the largest pandemic catastrophes in human history. Not to mention, it was compounded during elections, during some of the peaks of technological advancements that we still don't know how to traverse well yet in our society. And we're here alive. I'm sitting on my bed right now, talking to somebody on YouTube. Like, what a miracle. So the chaos we've been humbled by it. You know, a lot of chaos it doesn't even need to be spoken what too much chaos can lead to. But it's certainly worth sitting with quietly and allowing it to humble you. But that's not to shake a finger at chaos and call it evil. Because what we've also been given with this pandemic, with COVID, we've been given a clean slate. Old ways of being have been torn down, like a forest fire that burns the forest. Is that painful? Is that utterly, excruciatingly difficult for the soul? Yes. Yes. And does it bring space for the growth of something new? Yes. When a forest burns, what's left in its wake is ashes, and those ashes are like mega fertilizer. And I'm speaking biologically. This is true. The ashes of a forest fire that kind of mend and seep into the soil of the burnt down forest beneath. Well, guess what happens after the forest fire? The sun comes up, the rain falls, the soil is quenched, and new bacteria, new microorganisms, a new microbiome starts to grow out of that soil. And what comes in the place of the old forest? What's the name of the biome, the tropical biome with the luscious trees? I can't think of it. Like a jungle. Like you ever see the documentaries on like those luscious jungles with animals like birds that they're so like it's so full of resources that like micro species, I know I'm not using the right terms here, of birds and of different animals can become so specialized, and the way that they're interwoven together and the way that they play off other species together, it's utterly incredible. And it's because of the abundance of that jungle, because of all the luscious rain, the sun, because of the fertile soil, that foundation. That's what comes from dirt. And that's what we should start to hope for, and more than hope for, to expect. So the way that I wanted to relate the military analogy earlier, what I wanted to say was, you know, we're it's like we're home from battle. You know, we're kind of in we're in the aftermath of the battle. The soul still feels on guard, right? That's what trauma is. You still feel the echoes of what's happened, that ongoing trauma that's taken place. But now, all of a sudden, we have space to breathe. We have space to process. We have space to reconnect with the people closest to us. And it starts with the grassroots of who you're closest to. It starts with the spaces you already inhabit, and what once might have brought decay to your life now can bring growth to your life. So the spaces you already inhabit that you might have on autopilot, you might go to out of muscle memory, you might even consider an addiction. Those are the spaces in which you will now be met with new spirit and new life. If you open your heart to it, open your eyes to it. Don't try to change who you are. Come to acceptance with who you are, what you do, where you find yourself, the spaces you already inhabit, and believe that life can be brought to those very spaces. So like Peter, who cast his net into the water over and over all night long, trying to get fish to feed his family, fish to sell to the market so that he could get money to feed, so that he could feed his family. He did that all night long, cast after cast, throwing his net in the water, inhabiting the same space every single day. That's like me with gaming, going back every single day. Life not showing back up. That thing that I thought that I once had, which I did once have, it became a dead space, but not anymore. Why? Because the tides are turning. A new atmosphere is coming. A new chapter is being brought forth. So you can cast your net back into the water in that familiar space that you've already been casting in over and over and over. And this time, maybe a fish will be caught. I guess that's all I had to say. I don't have a way to end these videos because it's an ongoing process, such as life. So, until next time, thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.